The optimal morning basketball routine. I'm Tony. Welcome back to Streetball Strategies.
Alarm clock buzz, but my mind zones in. Shower steam rising, now the grind begins. Stretch out the doubt, can't let it creep in. Morning meditation, yeah, the wind's locked in.
I'm making this video in relation to a viral video that came out a couple months ago about a guy who had this exaggerated morning routine that he went through that it was way over exaggerated. It went viral and it made me think about, people started talking about, what's, certain celebrities or whatever, what's their morning routine. It made me think about, as a basketball player, what would be the optimal routine that we could have. The problem for me is I'm also a fitness guy. So once I retired from active competition, I became more of a fitness guy than, an actual basketball, active competition basketball guy. I transitioned to being just like a physical fitness kind of guy. So I developed my morning routine a long time ago. The problem is there's nothing revolutionary there. There's no sort of super secret sauce to having a morning routine as a basketball player, someone who's trying to optimize their basketball performance. There's no secrets. There's no hacks. It's just yes, of course you would do these things to make your morning before, say, a game day more optimal. So there's tips I can give you, but don't expect them to be something, unless you're a very beginner kind of player. Don't expect anything revolutionary. So let's talk about trying to build your optimal basketball morning routine. While this is supposed to be a morning routine program, the main point is that we're trying to be prepared as best as possible for whatever upcoming competition we're about to engage in. For me and my friends, Saturday afternoon was our big game day of the week. So if I was trying to optimize my morning routine, it would be for that Saturday morning. But trying to make that morning as optimized as possible really starts the day before. Because by the time competition starts on Saturday, the fuel and the water, the hydration that you're going to use during that time period is primarily going to come from what you intake on the day before. For me, it would have been that Friday. So preparation starts with Friday. How do you eat and how do you hydrate yourself? Obviously, you want to be as hydrated as possible. Obviously, you want to eat as cleanly as possible, clean protein, clean carbohydrates. You want to have a few, similar sized meals separated throughout the day. You don't want to eat too much to have any kind of gastro problems, intestinal problems. So you don't want to eat too much because even though you're fueling your body to be used, use that fuel in the next day, you don't want to have too much because you don't want to make yourself heavy or feel uncomfortable. Same thing with the hydration. You probably want to get nice and hydrated early in the day before. So maybe it would be Friday. So that Friday morning and early afternoon would be a whole lot of hydrating, a whole lot of intake of low-calorie liquids, and that's all in preparation to be used that next day on Saturday for competition. And in terms of physical activity on that day, 24 hours before competition is supposed to take place, sure, you can have some kind of light workout, some kind of light practice or scrimmage or whatever it may be, light workouts, light drills that you can run, but nothing that's going to tax your system to the point where it's going to have any significant fatigue, especially that's going to linger into the next day. Which brings me to sleep. Sleep the night before competition or whatever major basketball activity you have going on that next day is paramount. Sleep can be very determinative of how your body's going to respond that next day. I think it would be very fair to make the case that sleep that night before is at least as important as everything else you do in that day leading up to that night's sleep. Sleep could very well be even more important than everything you do that day. And it's not about the amount of sleep that you get. That can help, but it's much more about the quality of sleep that you can get. For me, for example, my ideal amount of sleep would be like 7.5 hours. But I would rather have, say, 6 hours of good quality sleep, and that's all the sleep I got for that night, than to have like 7 to 7.5 hours of like mediocre quality sleep. Ideally, it would be 7.5 hours of good quality sleep together combined, but if I had to choose between quality and quantity, quality wins almost every time. So that means you also have to prep for trying to have the optimal sleep that night as well. So that's probably going to mean, some kind of physical activity earlier in that day to put a little bit of tax on your body so that you can sleep well that night. You're going to want to probably stop hydrating a good 6-8 hours before you go to sleep. That way you're not getting up every few hours to go to the bathroom while you're trying to get that good quality of sleep. So obviously you're still going to keep drinking water or whatever leading up until, you go to bed. It's just not going to be, an intentional sort of over the top, get as much liquid in as possible as you do like the first half of the day. The second half of the day is kind of like you just sort of drinking when you get thirsty. But you don't want to drink too much because, like I said, you don't want to be up in the middle of the night having to go to the bathroom over and over again. And then whatever you can do to help yourself get good quality of sleep that night, do that. A lot of people eat some light carbohydrates before they go to bed. It helps them to sleep better. And remember, we're talking about good quality sleep throughout as much of the night as possible. So like if you do something where it makes you fall asleep pretty quickly, but you don't sustain any kind of deep sleep throughout the night, or like it affects your sleep in a way where you go to sleep pretty quickly, but then your quality of sleep doesn't really maintain itself throughout the night. You want to figure out what works for you so that throughout as much of the night as possible, you get the highest quality sleep, the deepest sleep for as long as possible that you can. That's all leading up to you finally getting up that morning of your competition and what your actual routine then should be. So now we put all this preparation into optimizing the morning before your competition. So when we go into our morning routine, our routine is that much more efficient and is that much more effective and useful for us when it comes to later on in actual competition or whatever basketball activity you're doing. The first thing I would say is learn how you wake up best. And I say that because for me, it's paramount that when my alarm goes off, I wake up slowly. So I set my alarm so that hopefully I get my ideal amount of sleep. And during that amount, hopefully I had nice, restful, deep sleep throughout the night. And I get the exact amount of sleep that I aim to get every night to have, an ideal body and physical condition. Set my alarm, and then when it wakes me up after that certain amount of sleep time, then for me, I have to wake up nice and slowly, nice and peacefully. If my alarm goes off and I have to jump out of bed and immediately start rushing around and getting ready, that puts me in a terrible mood for the rest of the day. Or at least it's a terrible way for me to start the day because it automatically puts me in a very bad mood. But the slower and more peacefully I can wake up, the better for me. So know how to wake up. Know what routine process works best for you when you're first waking up from that hopefully good night of sleep. Once you do get up, I would say start hydrating again and start fueling your body again. Nice, clean proteins and carbohydrates all over again. You don't have to go over the top with that hydration, right? Just make sure you get fluid into your body so that you're not lacking anything, but you don't have to, gulp down a gallon of water immediately first thing in the morning. Which brings me briefly to the topic of caffeine. For those of you who use caffeine, especially if you rely on it, if it's part of your daily routine, science has shown that for most people, it's better to wait an hour and a half, 90 minutes after you wake up before you ingest your first dose of caffeine in the morning. I use caffeine as well, but I'm very judicious about it. It's very specialized and I'm very strategic about it. I only ever intake caffeine when I have a very specific use for it. So on Saturdays before competitions at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, I would wait until about noon if I was going to have any caffeine. That way my body is not using it or running off of it until about an hour before competition starts, so it can start metabolizing it and start using it right around the time that competition is about to start. But however you use it, my suggestion is wait at least 90 minutes after you've waken up, after you've gotten out of bed, after you've started to be active, before you have your first dose of caffeine. And if you don't use caffeine, if you're not a caffeine person, then perfectly fine. I salute you. If you can operate well without caffeine, then I would encourage you to do that. In terms of being physical prior to that competition that you have coming up later in the day, I would say it's fine, again, to do something light if you want to, if you choose to. Some kind of light cardio, some kind of light resistance training, whatever it may be. Just keep it light. Just do it enough to get your blood flowing and your lungs working and your heart working. Just enough to sort of, get blood flowing through you and to get the right hormones to be flowing through your body, but nothing that's going to tax you before whatever basketball activity you have coming up. I would also recommend at some point as early as possible to do some kind of stretching. Now, this is not something that I did when I was an active player, but looking back on it now in hindsight, it's something that I probably should have done. And if I could do it all over again, I probably would incorporate, doing daily, morning stretching, having a routine for it very early in the day, especially before some kind of competition. The reason for that is just for mobility's sake, so that your body, your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, they all are very mobile and flexible as much as possible. And that's all about avoiding injury later on in the day when you're really pushing your body. Now, you want to do that stretching. And when I say stretching, I mean static stretching, meaning holding a stretch. You want to do that as far away, as far before that competition or that activity as possible. And it doesn't have to be anything intense. It can be sort of relaxing and light and nothing crazy, but just enough so that you can, get some mobility going throughout your body, especially in your legs. The reason I say do the stretching as far as possible away from whatever activity you're going to be doing is because it's great to do dynamic stretching right before your activity, as you're warming up. It's good to do dynamic stretching, meaning doing movements that force your body to stretch. So doing leg swings, that's good because you're not holding the stretch. Your body's stretching while it's moving. That's what you're supposed to do during warm-up, but not before. You do not do static or holding stretching before activity where you're really going to be pushing your body. That static stretching is for after you've done that intense physical activity. But you can do it way early in the day prior to that activity to keep it as far away as possible, just for general flexibility. And I have to work in some kind of psychological angle to this because I love the psychology of fitness and of basketball. So while you're doing your stretching, first thing in the morning, use that time and take it to be nice and calm and peaceful and quiet. Use that time while you're stretching to center yourself, center your mind, center your psychology. Think about what you want to take place later on in the day when you're doing whatever basketball activity that it is. Envision how you want it to go. Envision the goals that you have. Envision the strategy that you're going to employ. Envision the mistakes that may come during you trying to, apply all of that. And then how you're just going to deal with it when those mistakes happen, when things happen that are going to be out of your control. Well, how do you respond to that? Mentally prepare yourself for that. And as you're doing that, just sort of center yourself. Use it as kind of a form of meditation. I'm not that big on meditation in general, but especially on special big, out of the ordinary kind of game days, I really did, utilize some kind of form of meditation to really center my mind on how I want that day to go and how I'm going to deal with any unexpected turns that may come. That worked really well for me, and I think it would work really well for any player. And it's definitely not, there's no downside to having that be part of like your daily morning routine, especially when like you're stretching and you don't have anything else to do while you're stretching out. So while you're doing it, just use that as like a time to meditate and center yourself. When we're talking about a routine, we're obviously talking about some kind of structured process of events, that takes place over a scheduled kind of amount of time. So you're going to have to figure out for you how to structure those things throughout the morning, throughout the process of the day that go in an order and a timing of which works best for you. Keep drinking, keep hydrated, keep yourself, ideally fueled in terms of the nutrition, the food that you take in. Not too much, not too little, just enough to get the job done. Make sure it's clean and nothing, no fast food, junk food, any kind of that. Nothing too sugary or oily. Just good, clean fuel that your body's going to use for that later basketball activity. Go through the meditation and whatever maybe physical, whatever, cardio, whatever light kind of workout you're going to do prior to that activity. Structure all that in a routine process that works best for you. And then when the time comes to actually get to that, the main event activity, now you're going to be as prepared as you could ever expect yourself to be to perform as well as you possibly could expect yourself to perform. It's up to you if you want to have like one overall consistent morning routine that you go through every single morning, or if you want to develop different routines depending on whatever activity you're preparing for later on in the day. The whole point is having that routine gives you structure. It gives you a process to go through every morning. And that can be very valuable because that structure means you know what to do. Like, okay, this is how I wake up. After I wake up, then I do this, then I do this, then this happens. Like it gives you a plan every single morning so that you're not just sort of improvising what you do until, in preparation for the activity that you have coming up. Some people are lucky and their personalities are just so the kind where like that works best for them. The whole improvised thing, doing something different every morning. There are definitely people and players where that works best for them. But I think for most of us, the routine, having a process in place every day, at least for whatever activity, I think that is very important for most of us because we can then rely on that. It can be our fallback plan for days where like we don't feel like it, but we know we're supposed to do X, Y, and Z because it's part of our morning routine. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, if you found it helpful at all, if you think it's going to help you to develop a routine to prepare for major basketball activities, then please subscribe to the channel and let us know down in the comments, what is your basketball morning routine and how does it help to optimize the way you prepare for whatever basketball activities. But before you comment, make sure you hit that thanks button down below because not only does hitting that thanks button highlight any comment you make, making it stand out from any other comment, but it also directly supports the channel. So for anyone that does hit that thanks button, know I genuinely appreciate it. Like always, like, share, comment like I said, make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever any video goes live on this channel. And until then, see you guys next week.
Late nights planning moves never offline. Every choice calculated like a free throw line. Tomorrow's MVP starts with today's goal. Basketball flow shaping body and soul. Egg white spinning on a non-stick pan. Bananas fuel hustle like the ultimate plan. Backpack zip with my laces in check. Chasing greatness ain't about chasing a check.